Hey guys, welcome back. I am in the middle of making my garden plans. I thought I'd take you along and show you what I do to plan out my garden for the year. And these are not just garden plans just to see where I want to plant certain things, but this is my garden plans that I use and how I plan out um, to grow the food that we're actually going to eat for the year to really supplement the grocery store. So this isn't really like a hobby garden planning tutorial. This is like how to really figure out how much food you need for the year to really save you money at the grocery store, okay? So if that is something that interests you, you would like to see how you can plan out how to actually save money at the grocery store by growing a garden, this is the video for you. Okay, so let's just get right into this. When I'm making my garden plans, my main goal is to save money at the grocery store. In order to save money at the grocery store, I have to grow the things that I would be normally buying at the grocery store. And this is where it can get a little tricky with home gardens because it's very tempting to just grow lots of tomatoes and peppers and squash and zucchini, right? But the truth about that is that if that's the only things that you're growing and you're still having to go to the grocery store and buy carrots and onions and garlic and herbs and lettuces and all that type of stuff, potatoes, corn, if you're still buying all those things at the store, you're not going to see a really big difference in your grocery bill. In order to save money on your grocery bill with a garden, you've really got to figure out how am I going to grow enough food and really supplement what I'm actually buying at the grocery store. So the first thing that you have to do to figure this out is you got to figure out what do we actually eat. Like what does our family realistically eat in a week? So I sit down, look at a realistic week of what we have eaten. This includes breakfast, lunch, and supper, and I just make a list. And I can just put a little check beside each time that I used carrots for the week or potatoes, or write down about how many I think each day I would have used last week or in the last few weeks or the last month, however you want to go about this. I do it in a weekly, I just look at 1 week's worth of meals and that's how I plan this out, okay? Myself. So I will look at the fact of last week we ate mashed potatoes twice, baked potatoes once, and we did some fried potatoes, like a hash, once. So we ate potatoes 4 times last week, and each time we used at least 4 or 5 potatoes. So I'm just going to write around 20 potatoes. So potatoes, next to it I'm going to write 20 potatoes. I know that during the winter months I buy at least 1 stalk of celery, so I'm just going to go ahead and write celery, 1 stalk. I usually buy 2 or 3 onions a week, and so I'm going to write onions, 2 or 3 onions. And let's see, tomatoes. This is where tomatoes can be a little tricky because if you only are growing tomatoes just to eat them fresh, you're really not getting the full benefit of them, okay? So whenever I'm looking at our tomato consumption, we actually don't even eat a lot of fresh tomatoes, but instead we eat a lot of pasta sauce, pizza sauce, we eat salsa, I use Rotel in several things. I use just canned tomatoes for a lot of bases for like my soups and such as that. So we actually use a lot of tomato products, just not in, I don't just usually go buy a raw tomato at the store very often, but we use on a weekly basis a lot of things that have a tomato base. So I need to add in a lot of tomatoes, and I also need to look at the things that I just mentioned that were tomato based. What other ingredients am I going to have to grow to produce that product, finished product, at home? So for pasta sauce, for instance, I'm going to also write down on my list bell peppers, onions, garlic, herbs. Okay, I'm going to write down things like that, and that's also going to go on my list, kind of as a secondary column of things that I'm also going to need to grow at least some of in order to be able to go out and harvest everything, bring it in, and make a pasta sauce. Okay, then look at the things that I use as ingredients that maybe I'm buying them at the store and they're already put together for me, like a bag of frozen vegetables or canned vegetables. Maybe I want to use that in a soup or a chicken pot pie. I look at the ingredients of those, what type of vegetables are in those, and then I write those down, like peas, carrots, corn. So I make a list of those. And how many times a week do I use that product? Like how many bags of frozen vegetables would I go through a week? Well, not more than one, but so I'll just write down peas, carrots, whatever all's in there. I'll just write that down kind of in my secondary column of, because it's kind of almost like a side. Those are things I'm going to want to grow so I don't have to buy those frozen vegetables or canned veggies anymore at the store. Sweet potatoes. We eat sweet potatoes at least once a week, so I'm going to add that onto my list. And then what are the sides that I fix? Like if I'm going to roast a chicken, what sides would we probably have? And that would be, I'd probably have on along with the roasted chicken, like carrots and onions, maybe some sweet potatoes, some things of that nature, maybe some corn on the cob with it. So that's an available sides that I don't have to buy at the store. I want to be able to grow those, okay? So I'd write down corn and carrots, and I'd maybe add a few more onions on there. And then I'll look at my salads. What stuff do we use to make salads with for the week? Cucumbers and lettuce, spinach and kale, broccoli. These can be, depending on the season, that's going to change. Radishes, snow peas. So I want to write all of my lettuce ingredients down. Those are things I'm going to want to grow, okay? So you get the gist of what I'm saying here. You really need to dissect your grocery bill and see what things you're actually buying every week. If you're buying a bag of carrots every week, then it'd probably be a really great idea to learn how to grow carrots so that you don't have to buy those anymore. If you're using several onions a week, you probably are going to want to learn how to grow those so you're not buying those every week. So I make my list, and then I decide which ones of these things are the things that are the absolute staples. For us, that is potatoes, tomatoes, beans, corn, onions, and carrots. Those are our absolute staples. Those are the things that we need to grow a lot of in order to really make a difference in our grocery bill. Because those are the things that I need to grow a lot of, when I'm making out my garden plans, like right here, this is just a little sketch of where all my beds are. Like 70% of my garden beds are going to be filled with either potatoes or sweet potatoes, corn, tomatoes, beans, onions. Those are going to be the main things that we can get by making meals with those things. And so that's going to be like 70% of my garden space. I'm going to draw in and make space for those things first. Then the 30-ish% left that I have, I'm going to add in those secondary things that I said that I need, like maybe it was snow peas for my salads. Maybe it is garlic to go with my pasta sauce. Maybe I'm going to need to add in here the peppers to go, the specific type of peppers I want to grow for my salsa or rotel. Those need to get added into here. And then also this is going to include things that we can make them as sides and as dishes, but it's not something that we eat every single week, and it's something that not something that we're going to eat multiple times a week. That's things like okra, squash, zucchini, maybe like our melons or pumpkin, like pie pumpkin. Those are things that we like those, but I can't make a whole meal out of a pie pumpkin, unless you consider a pumpkin pie a whole meal. So those are things that they're not top priority, but I'm still going to save space for those. So I'm going to give those about 30% of my garden space, and then I'll have about 10% left over. And that's just going to be just little odds and ends, like a corner of my bed here, or one little spot over here. That's going to be for things that are just fun things, or things that are just, I could take it or leave it. We're not really going to miss it that much if it's not even there at all. That might be things like a new type of pepper, or like I said, that might be a pumpkin plant or a gourd just for fun. It might be a new type of Might be something new that I don't even know if I'm going to like it or not. So I'm just going to grow 1 or 2 things of it to see this year. That's more like for something fun and new that I've seen that I just want to try. I'm just not going to devote a whole bed to something I don't even know if I like it or not. So it's just going to be tiny little spaces just mixed in here and there. And so that is how I'm going to make sure that I have enough space in my garden to grow all those major things that I have to get by with. Okay. So the second thing that I do is I plan on to make sure that I'm going to use up every day of my available growing time. And I also make sure that none of my garden beds, so like this is a sketch of when my garden beds are laid out. I'll make sure that none of these are ever empty at all during my growing season, okay? And so let's talk about this first. If you are using raised beds, I just went on Word and I just put in the little squares here and I made a little garden layout of exactly how my garden is currently laid out and saved this, and I printed off a whole bunch of them so I can, when I change my mind and reorganize it 10 different times, I can just print off a new page and start over again. These are also helpful for me because I can actually make a garden plan for every month or every 2 or 3 months if I need to, depending on how many things need harvested when. So if you haven't ever made a little garden sketch like this, you could hand draw one out and then copy it and make yourself several copies or do something like this, but super helpful. And then once I have that, like I have one here for March and I have one for May. And I'm going to show you how I interplant crops and how I plan on moving my crops through my garden so that there's never any empty space, as well as I'm always planning to have something new ready to go in a space when it's being harvested. Okay, so once you get onto the Old Farmer's Almanac, there's a spot there where you can just type in your zip code and it will pull up a little screen. I'll show you what mine looks like when it pulled it up here. So on that was the last frost date, and that's going to be the first date that you're going to be able to put seeds or plants in the ground that are frost sensitive, okay? And then it's going to show you your first frost date, which means that's going to be in the fall. When is that first frost likely to come? And it would kill any frost sensitive crops that you might have. In the window in between, the third little box that was on there, that it says how many days you have, right? Available grow days or something like that. And I think mine is 197 days. So that means for any plant that I want to grow that is sensitive to frost, like tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, beans and corn, all of those things, squash and zucchini and cucumbers, all of those things, I have 197 days to get those grown in. So I know that for any of those I just mentioned, that's how many days I have to grow those. And then I can go back and I can look up those crops that I made a list of at the beginning of when I said potatoes and tomatoes and corn. Those are things that are definitely staples that I need to grow a lot of. How I'm able to use a relatively, it's not huge, garden space to grow a lot and to double or triple my harvest is I'm able to grow those crops more than once. So I'll give you a quick example here. Let's just say here is my first date that I can plant my potatoes is around March 15th. And the last day that they will be able to grow before they get killed by frost is October 30th or something like that. I'm going to have around 220 days, I believe. It's right around 220 days of grow time. Potatoes take 100 days to 110 days to come to harvest. So if I plant potatoes on March 15th and I go forward to around 110 days, I'm going to be right in the middle of my growing window here because I just said I had about 230. So I'm at 110 days and I want to harvest those potatoes. I can actually come right behind and plant potatoes again in that same spot and grow for another 110 days. And I'll still give me 10-15 days before the first frost could possibly come. And in that window, I'm able to grow 2 rounds of potatoes in one garden bed. Instead of just planting my potatoes, letting them grow, I harvest them, and then that bed just sits there for like months. I'm able to grow a lot more by growing 2 rounds of potatoes in that set time limit. The same thing happens with corn. I'm able to grow as long as I start my corn right when it's the first available time that I can plant it in April. I can actually harvest that and get a second crop of corn in. As long as I choose a faster growing crop of corn, I can plant it secondary right behind it and get a second round of corn as well, which is doubling my harvest in one space. Carrots, same thing. They take about 80 days to come to harvest. So 80 days, and I have 100, and I can actually plant them a little before my last frost date. I can plant them before that because they take a while to germinate, and I cover them up while they're germinating anyway. So I can start planting my carrots in like March. 80 days in, I'm going to harvest those. I can come right behind there and I can plant out my carrots again. Wait 80 days. Now I'm only at 160 days. And then if I choose to, I can still plant a third session of carrots. And then as they grow into those fall months, carrots are not super sensitive to frost. So I'm usually able to carry my carrots out into like November before the tops die back. And so I can have potentially from March to November, I can be growing carrots, okay? So I'm able to get 3 rounds of carrots in one garden bed. Instead of just planting carrots, and when they're harvested, I'm just like, oh, we're done. I just keep planting until I run out of time. So this is really especially important with like things that are really quick to harvest, like beans, bush beans, green beans, only take around 60 days to come to harvest. I am able to get several succession plantings of green beans throughout my garden, different places, throughout the growing season. Let's start green bean seeds indoors a few weeks before it's time to plant them out. So they're already growing, they're already on their way. And then plant them out when they're 4 or 5 weeks old, and then they're already a little ahead of the game. So I can really squeeze in several back-to-back harvests of green beans by doing that. Another thing that I do that really helps me be able to keep up with what's on paper is I use my phone to my advantage, or a paper calendar, or both. And how I do that is, like I said, look up on Old Farmer's Almanac, those dates for your last frost and your first frost, circle those on your calendar. You know that is your window of time to grow a lot of things. And then the Old Farmer's Almanac will also give you dates of plant radishes on this day, plant your lettuce on this day. It'll give you the first dates available to plant things. And so I've also, I took their suggestions there, and I've moved those onto my calendar. As I use that, put all that information into my calendar or into my phone. So let's see here. Let's just say that it tells me that my first date to plant potatoes is March 15th. And I look up the variety of potato that I want to grow, and it says you can harvest it in 100 days, okay? So I am going to put in my phone, March 15th, plant potatoes. I'm then going to go ahead and I'm going to count 100 to 110 days ahead. And I also put in my calendar, I'm going to find that date, and I'm going to put in there harvest potatoes / replant potatoes. And that is how I'm just going to keep up with what I should be doing in my potato beds. Let's see here, let's say like these middle ones. In March, I have brassicas and leafy greens in here, and I have my dates of when to plant those. It's probably mid-March. And then I'll also have like come back on May 1st, harvest the rest of what's in these beds, and replant purple hull peas. Same thing here. I'm going to have brassicas in here. As it warms up, I'm going to begin to harvest all of those. And by mid-April, I'm going to put me a note in my phone that says April, I'm just guessing, April 20th, plant corn and okra. So, and that's just, and these little reminders, they just pop up on my phone all the time. That's like, hey, it's time to plant your lettuce. Hey, it's time to plant your corn. And then I also, as I get into the warmer months, if I see somewhere on my calendar where I think, oh, here in about a month, I'm going to be able to plant another round of green beans, I should go ahead and get those green bean seeds started in a tray, and that way they're ahead. I can say I want to replant beans in August. I can back up to July 1st and put me a note in my phone that says start green bean seeds in seed cell trays. And that'll pop up and remind me, and I'll be like, okay, I need to do that. Otherwise, it could all get very chaotic. If you don't want to use your phone calendar, you could write this all out on your phone. I really recommend at least writing down harvest dates, because there's been times when I get impatient. I'm like, why are these carrots growing very fast? They look pitiful. And then when I look at my calendar, I'm like, oh yeah, well, they still got 40 days left, to grow. So that helps with that too. It can also help with your planning if you are planning a vacation or something like that. Vacations and gardening season, they don't mix well sometimes. And so it is nice to know if I'm looking at a date and I'm going to be on vacation the last week of June, I don't really want all of my corn to be ready to harvest the last week of June, right? So I might wait and plant my corn 1 week later than I usually would have, so that I can offset my harvest and still be able to go on my vacation. So anyway, the main things are figuring out exactly what is it, being honest with yourself. What is it that I really eat during the week? And then looking at ways, how am I going to actually be able to grow this at home? If I like to eat potatoes several times a week, I need to learn how to grow potatoes. If I'm going to use celery and onion and carrots every week, I should learn how to grow celery and onion and grow the things that I'm actually eating. Because there's like the whole gardening track that you can get into where you grow a lot of tomatoes and a lot of peppers and a lot of squash and zucchini. And that's fun, and you get all this harvest, so much you don't even know what to do with it. Maybe you don't know how to preserve the tomatoes or whatever, and you're just like, but then when it's done, and you still have months of wintertime and spring where that didn't affect your grocery bill at all. And so when you're looking into really saving money at the grocery store, you just really got to be honest with yourself and on what do I need to grow? What do I need to grow to save money from the grocery store? From having to go to the grocery store. And then once you decide what those things are, if you don't know how to grow them, my advice would be before you ever plant a single thing, like before you plant carrots, just go in search of all the information you can possibly find about growing carrots, so you really understand what you're getting into and you're well equipped to try your best with that. Like say you're going to grow garlic. Garlic can't just be planted just any time of the year. That's important to know. So you would want to do your research on what type of garlic should you plant in your area, because there are different types that do best in different areas. Hard neck and soft neck, and when should I plant this garlic, and how long does it take before I'll even be able to harvest this garlic and be able to use it. These are important things that you need to know so that you can plan accordingly in your garden. And so there's so much free information out there on the internet, so many different garden blogs and YouTube gardeners and all sorts of information. All you have to do is go in search of it. And that's really going to help you once you understand different types of plants, how they grow, how long they take to grow. So it's going to help you be able to plan out your garden accordingly a lot better. So that is the basics on how I plan out my garden so that I can save some moolah. And so far it's working out well. Every year we are we're increasing the amount of things we're able to grow. And I'm also, like last year, I was looking back, what did we not eat a lot of that I've preserved a lot of? And one of those things was pickles. We haven't eaten hardly any of the pickles that are preserved. Nobody loves pickles around here, so I'm going to grow less cucumbers, and I'll use that space growing less cucumbers. I'll take that space, and instead I'll grow more tomatoes. Another thing that we didn't grow, we grew a lot of, but we did not eat it, and it's still on our shelves from last year, is pie pumpkins. We have not used a lot of that, so I will not grow pie pumpkins this year. I will use that space to grow extra potatoes. So I'm being very honest with myself. If those were fun to grow, I like growing those, but I don't need any this year. And then also, last year I grew a ton of squash and zucchini. I didn't really need nearly as much as I grew. So I'm going to grow a lot less of that. It takes up a lot of space in the garden. And again, I'm going to use that space instead for growing a staple crop like corn or carrots or something of that nature. So I hope this has helped you, and stay tuned and we'll talk about how to start your tomatoes from seed and your peppers from seed. All right. Hope you guys have a good day.